My husband, that two-faced Garrett, reached over at his sister's lavish wedding and intertwined his fingers with another woman's. Then, with all the grace of a bull in a china shop, he turned towards the assembled 500 guests and uttered those three devastating words that would shatter my world. Little did he suspect, I had been meticulously orchestrating a surprise of my own, one that would make his little stunt look like a childish game of tag. Before we delve into this tale of unexpected twists, sweet redemption, and a woman's unwavering spirit, I implore you, hit that subscribe button and ring that bell. Trust me, darlings, you won't want to miss a single moment of this unfolding drama. Now let me whisk you away to what was, without a doubt, both the worst and the most glorious day of my entire existence. My name is Diana, and 6 years prior, I walked down the aisle to marry a billionaire. I know it sounds like some fairy tale, doesn't it? A black girl plucked from the South Side, ascending to unimaginable heights, and snagging her very own Prince Charming. Except, darling, nobody bothers to tell you that some princes are merely wolves clad in impeccably tailored, obscenely expensive suits, and some castles are just gilded cages, no matter how pretty they seem. That particular morning began much like any other high society affair I had been reluctantly dragged to. I stood before our massive bedroom mirror, meticulously fastening the zipper of a champagne-colored gown, a dress that cost more than my mother's entire monthly rent. Downstairs, Garrett was probably already on his third shot of espresso, barking orders into his phone on his 10th business call of the morning. We barely spoke anymore. Hadn't for months, if I'm being honest with myself. We had become nothing more than strangers, bound by a shared last name and a king-sized bed that we both painstakingly avoided. His sister, Brianna, was tying the knot that day. The wedding of the century, they called it. 500 hand-picked guests, a venue that resembled something plucked straight from the French countryside. Flowers flown in, mind you, from 3 different continents. The whole 9 yards. And me? I was merely the wife who never quite fit, the outsider looking in. Never did, never would. I had met Garrett 7 years prior at a tech conference in the bustling city of San Francisco. I had just concluded a pitch for my software security company to a room filled with eager investors when I noticed him standing in the back, exuding an aura of confidence with a smile that made you feel like you were the only person in the entire world. He asked me out to dinner, then breakfast. 6 months later, he got down on one knee. Back then, foolishly, I believed that love conquered all. I believed that our bond was stronger than his family's thinly veiled racism, stronger than the whispers that followed me at country clubs, stronger than the way his mother would reach out and touch my hair, as if I were some exotic pet on display. I was wrong. Love doesn't conquer a damn thing when only one person is doing the loving. That morning, as I applied the final touches to my makeup, Garrett sauntered in. He looked at me the way one looks at a stranger on the subway, with indifference, with a complete lack of warmth or recognition. Just nothing. Ready? He asked, already glued to his phone. Almost, I replied, watching him in the mirror. You've been glued to that phone all morning. Everything okay? Just work, he said, not even bothering to look up. Always just work. For the past 6 months, everything had been just work. The late nights, the weekend trips, the distance growing between us like an uncrossable ocean. We drove to the venue in strained silence. His hands were clenched tightly around the steering wheel, and I watched the trees blur past my window, wondering where it all went wrong, when we had become these hollowed-out versions of ourselves. When had we stopped laughing? When had his touch transformed from electric to obligatory? The estate was undeniably stunning. I'll give them that. Pristine white tents sprawled across flawlessly manicured lawns, crystal chandeliers hung precariously from the branches of ancient trees, and everywhere you turned, there were flowers. White roses, hydrangeas, peonies, everything impeccably white, perfect, and outrageously expensive, just the way Brianna had envisioned it, just like their entire world. I felt the stares the moment we arrived. That's the thing about being the only black woman in a sea of pale faces. You notice. You always notice the quick glances, the hushed conversations that abruptly cease when you venture too close, the smiles that never quite reach anyone's eyes. Garrett's mother, Patricia, leaned in and air-kissed both of my cheeks, her perfume practically choking me. Diana, darling, that's an interesting choice of dress. Translation. Asterisk, why aren't you wearing what I suggested? Why can't you just blend in? Thank you, Patricia, I replied, flashing that smile I had perfected over the past 6 years, the one that said I'm fine, even as I felt like I was drowning. Garrett vanished almost immediately. Best man duties, he mumbled, but I knew better. I had known better for 3 agonizing months. You see, 3 months ago, I had returned home early from a seemingly endless business trip. I discovered emails open on his laptop, messages to someone named Claire, sickeningly sweet, romantic things he hadn't uttered to me in years. My heart shattered right there in our home office, the pieces falling onto our expensive Persian rug like a torrential downpour. But I didn't confront him. Not yet. Instead, I called my lawyer. Then I hired a private investigator. Because if there's one thing my mama taught me, it's this. When a man shows you who he truly is, believe him and then protect yourself. What I uncovered over those 3 months would have broken a weaker woman. The affair wasn't some recent fling. Claire was his college girlfriend, the one his family had actually approved of. She had moved to Europe for work, married some stuffy banker, and apparently had just gone through a messy divorce. She reappeared 6 months ago, and Garrett welcomed her with open arms and closed hotel room doors. But that wasn't all. My investigator dug deeper, unearthing financial irregularities in Garrett's company, money moving in suspicious ways, embezzlement from the charitable foundation we had started together, the one that was supposed to help underprivileged kids break into the tech world. He had been stealing from children to fund his extravagant lifestyle, to fund her. I spent those 3 months playing the perfect, oblivious wife while meticulously building my case. I smiled at dinners, attended galas, and allowed him to believe I was clueless. Meanwhile, I was meeting with lawyers, securing irrefutable evidence, and making moves that he would never see coming. His father, William, had passed away 2 years prior. Before he died, he had done something that Garrett never knew about. He had sold me 30% of the company's shares. Said I was the only one with real integrity. That his son desperately needed someone to keep him honest. At the time, I dismissed it as a sweet gesture from a dying man. Turns out, William knew exactly who his son was, and he was protecting the company from him. I had been quietly acquiring more shares through shell corporations. By the time the wedding rolled around, I owned 51%, making me the majority shareholder. I controlled everything, and Garrett was blissfully unaware. The ceremony itself was beautiful. I'll admit, Brianna looked absolutely radiant in her dress, and her groom gazed at her as if she hung the moon. It almost made me remember what hope felt like. Almost. I sat alone in the third row, as Garrett stood at the altar. I watched him laugh with the groomsmen, watched him smile for the cameras, watched him check his phone during the vows, and then I saw her. She was sitting 5 rows back, blonde, blue-eyed, wearing a blue dress that likely cost more than what I paid my employees in a month. Claire. She was watching Garrett with that look. The look I used to give him. A potent cocktail of love, possession, and smug victory. Our eyes met for just a fleeting second. She actually smiled at me, as if she had already won. My best friend, Nicole, slid into the seat beside me. She had flown in all the way from Atlanta to be a bridesmaid, and she was the only reason I hadn't completely lost my mind months ago. You okay? She whispered. Not even a little bit, I whispered back. But I will be. She squeezed my hand. She was the only one who knew what was coming, the only one I had trusted with my elaborate plan. The reception commenced with champagne, appetizers, and the kind of small talk that felt like chewing on broken glass. People asked me about Garrett's company, treating me as if I were just some decorative accessory. Nobody bothered to inquire about my company, despite the fact that it had just landed a lucrative contract with the Department of Defense. But that's how it always was in their world. I was Garrett's wife first, Diana second, my own person never. I attempted to mingle, but conversations seemed to wither and die the moment I approached. Brianna's friends would scatter like startled birds, and Patricia would steer people away from me with practiced ease. I was an outsider at my own husband's family wedding. Story of my life. Then the toasts began. The maid of honor spoke, followed by the father of the groom. Then, Garrett stood up, microphone in hand, and my entire body went ice cold. He started innocently enough, reminiscing about growing up with Brianna, sharing amusing childhood anecdotes, and making everyone laugh. He was charming. He had always been charming. That's how he had fooled me for so long. Then he said, before I finish, I need to say something important. Something that can't wait another day. The room fell silent. I felt Nicole's hand grasp mine beneath the table. Garrett gestured towards the back of the room. Claire, could you come up here, please? 500 heads swiveled. Claire stood up, smoothing down her dress, and walked to the front as if she were floating, as if this were her moment, her wedding. My heart pounded in my chest, so loudly I thought everyone could hear it. Garrett took her hand, actually took another woman's hand in front of me, in front of everyone we knew. I need to be honest, he said, his voice steady, as if he had rehearsed this. I've been living a lie, and it's not fair to anyone, especially not to Diana. He finally looked at me, and there was nothing in his eyes, no guilt, no remorse, just the profound relief that came with unburdening himself. Diana is a good woman, he continued, but we come from different worlds. She's always been more focused on her career than our marriage. And recently, someone from my past came back into my life and reminded me what real partnership looks like, what love should feel like. The room was so silent you could hear hearts breaking. Mine, some sympathetic guests, maybe even a few who genuinely cared. Claire and I are in love, he announced. We always have been, and I can't keep pretending anymore. Diana, I want a divorce. At his sister's wedding, in front of 500 people, he dumped me like I was nothing, as if 6 years meant nothing, as if I meant nothing. I heard gasps, whispers. Someone's champagne glass crashed to the floor and shattered. Brianna wasn't even pretending to look surprised. She knew. They all knew this was planned. This was my public execution, and they had all shown up to watch. Every eye in that room turned to me, waiting for me to cry, to scream, to run away in shame, waiting for the angry black woman they had always expected me to be. I stood up slowly. My legs felt like water, but I stood. Nicole was right beside me, ready to catch me if I fell. But I wasn't going to fall. Not anymore. I walked to the front of the room, each step feeling like a mile. Garrett's smug face, Claire's victorious smile, Patricia's barely concealed glee. They thought they had won. I took the microphone from Garrett's hand. Our fingers brushed for a split second, and I felt nothing. That's when I knew I was truly free. Thank you for that, Garrett, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. Now it's my turn. The room somehow grew even quieter. I want to thank you all for being here today, I continued, for witnessing this moment, because I've been waiting 3 months to do this publicly, and honestly, Garrett, you just made it so much easier. His face shifted, confusion replacing smugness. You see, I've known about Claire for 3 months. I found the emails, the hotel receipts, the late-night calls, all of it. Claire's smile faltered, and Garrett's face turned ashen. And instead of confronting you like you expected, like you probably wanted, so you could paint me as the crazy, jealous wife, I did something else. I prepared. I planned. I protected myself. Because that's what smart women do when they realize they've married a man who's not only a cheater, but a thief. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Your father, William, God rest his soul, knew what kind of man you were, Garrett. That's why, before he died, he sold me 30% of Stone Industries. But you never knew that, did you? You thought those shares were tied up in some trust. They weren't. They were mine. Garrett's face went from pale to a sickly gray. Over the past 3 months, I've been quietly buying up more shares through various channels. As of yesterday morning, I own 51% of your company. I'm the majority shareholder, which means, sweetheart, I own you. The room erupted in a cacophony of gasps and shouts. Garrett lunged for the microphone, but I sidestepped him with ease. But wait, there's more, I said, unable to suppress a wicked smile. See, when you've got a good private investigator and unlimited funds, you find out all kinds of interesting things like how you've been embezzling from our charity foundation, the one that's supposed to help kids. You've stolen almost $2 million over 3 years. Patricia stood up, her face contorted with rage. That's a lie. You're just trying to. I have bank records. I interrupted, my voice cutting through the noise. Wire transfers, emails, all of it has been turned over to federal investigators. They'll be contacting you Monday morning, Garrett. Maybe Tuesday if they're slow. Garrett was speechless. He just stood there, his perfect world crumbling around him in real time. Oh, and Claire, honey. I turned to her, and she looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. You might want to know that the man you've hitched your wagon to is about to lose everything. His company, his reputation, his freedom, possibly. But hey, love conquers all, right? I scanned the crowd. Some people were cheering, others looked horrified. Nicole was crying and laughing simultaneously. And one more thing, Claire, sweetie, you might also want to tell Garrett about your husband. You know, the one you're still married to, the one you told me about when I met with you last week. That got everyone's attention. Garrett turned to Claire as if he had been slapped. Diana's lying. Claire stammered. Am I? I pulled out my phone and held it up. Because I have the marriage certificate right here, filed in Monaco 18 months ago. No divorce papers yet, which makes you what? A bigamist if you marry Garrett, or just a liar? Claire ran, actually turned and fled the reception in her ridiculously expensive heels. Some people laughed, most just stared. I turned back to Garrett. He looked utterly destroyed, small, nothing like the confident and cruel man who had stood there 5 minutes prior. The prenup you made me sign is void, I said quietly, just for him. Adultery clause. Remember the one your lawyer insisted on to protect you? Well, it protects me now. I get 70% of everything we built together. The houses, the cars, the vacation properties, all of it. I handed him back the microphone. Oh, and Garrett, I'm starting my own company. Already have funding, already hired your 3 best executives. They're actually here tonight. I nodded towards the back of the room, where Thomas, Linda, and Robert stood, raising their glasses to me. They had been underpaid and undervalued for years, and they jumped at the chance to leave. They start with me on Monday. I want to thank you, Garrett, I said, my voice carrying across the stunned room. Thank you for showing me who you really are. Thank you for being so cruel that you made leaving you easy. Thank you for doing this publicly so everyone can see the kind of man you are. I looked at Patricia, at Brianna, at all the people who had made me feel small for 6 years. And to everyone here who made me feel like I didn't belong, who treated me like some charity case Garrett took pity on. Thank you too. Because you taught me that I'm worth more than your approval. I'm worth more than this family. I'm worth more than a man who could throw away 6 years like yesterday's garbage. I set the microphone down on the table. The sound echoed through the silence. Nicole linked her arm through mine, and we walked towards the exit, our heels clicking on the marble floor. Behind us, the room erupted in chaos, voices shouting, people arguing, but I didn't look back. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky in vibrant shades of gold and pink. I took my first deep breath in what felt like years. You did it, Nicole said, hugging me tight. You really did it. I did, I whispered, and then I cried. Not sad tears, not heartbroken tears, but freedom tears. That was 6 months ago. Today, I'm sitting in my new office in downtown Manhattan. My company, Fortress Security Systems, just landed 3 major contracts. We have 25 employees and counting. I'm happy, actually genuinely happy. Garrett's company barely survived. He had to sell to a competitor just to pay his legal fees. He settled out of court on the embezzlement charges, paid back every penny plus damages, and now serves 1,000 hours of community service. Last I heard, he's working for his cousin's real estate company. Claire left him the day his money dried up. Turns out she really was just after his wallet. Brianna's marriage lasted 4 months. Apparently, her husband got tired of her attitude real quick once the honeymoon glow faded. As for me, I'm dating again, slowly, carefully, but this time I know my worth. I know what I deserve, and I'll never settle for less again. People ask me if I regret how I handled it, if I regret the public humiliation of it all. I don't, not for a second, because sometimes the only way to take your power back is to stand up in front of everyone who tried to take it from you and say, no more. They say revenge is a dish best served cold, but this wasn't about revenge. It was about justice, self-respect, and reclaiming my power. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever felt underestimated or discarded, drop a comment below and share your story. You're stronger than you know. And please subscribe to this channel for more stories of resilience, redemption, and women who refuse to be broken. Hit that like button if you believe in standing up for yourself no matter who's watching. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Remember, they can try to write you out of the story, but baby, you hold the pen. And your next chapter is going to be legendary. Until next time, keep your head high and your standards higher. This is Diana signing off.